Hello, everybody. Jan Rutherford here with Self-Reliant Leadership. Hey, welcome to session 2 of 13 that we have going for this book launch of ours, Becoming a Self-Reliant Leader. And for those of you that don't know, the way that we came up with this book is we've had crucible expeditions for the last 10 years that have involved executives and military veterans who are transitioning to the business world. So over the course of 10 years, we probably had 250 people go through, and we decided that we would memorialize what we've learned, because so much of what happens on a crucible expedition is what happens in the business world. And what we did is we structured each chapter to mirror a phase of the crucible expedition, what happens, and again, how that parallels to the business world. And today, I'm lucky to have with me Al Paxton, who was a participant on a number of crucibles, who was participated both as a military veteran when he was transitioning out and has since participated as an executive. And we're going to talk about selection, selecting the right people versus the best people. And Al, welcome.
Well, thanks, Jen. I appreciate it. And I just tell you to you and Jackie, congratulations on this book launch. I'm very excited for you guys. I know you've poured your life work into this, and a lot of effort's gone into this. Both of you have made a huge impact on leadership in the military, in the corporate world. Really appreciate the friendship, appreciate the coaching and the mentoring along the way as well. Excited to be here, and just thanks for having me.
Well, thanks, and thanks. I really appreciate you being here as well. Throughout the book, we have quotes from folks like you that have said, "Hey, here's what it meant to me." And you transitioned from military special operations, and now you're the chief people officer at Encore Electric in Denver, Colorado. Can you kind of let people know, how did you go from being a special operations soldier to becoming the chief people officer at an electrical company?
I think like anything happens, I know people, or I knew people, right? You being one of them. I think just, how do you transition from being a soldier, being an operator, combatant, and then moving into the corporate world and having a job overseeing HR, recruiting, benefits, people development, leader development. It was through networking, a lot of networking. I thought, getting out of the military, I wanted to have a sense of purpose. I wanted to have a sense of people, and I wanted to do something impactful and important. And going through these different events, I thought I'd end up in a nonprofit, because I think strong sense of purpose, great people. Yep. Met you, met several other people. I was networking as much as I could through networking, through the crucible. I met some people. I met some of the Encore founders and some of the executive leadership there. And that became conversations over time. And they saw that, hey, you have value to our organization. Do you want to come and contribute that value, right? We have a strategic vision. Will you come and listen to our strategic vision and see if that you would fit, in our organization and add to that? And we had a lot of discussions, and ultimately agreed. They agreed. I agreed. And we came here, and we're doing people operations in a really fast growing company.
Yeah. And just real quick, for those of you listening in, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening in from? And as we go through this, any questions you have at all, we'd love to hear them. So Al, you're chief people officer, head of HR, head of human resources, as it's called. Selection is obviously a big part of what you do. You're part of a company that has 1,100 people, and recruiting and finding the best people is a big part of what you do. So one of the things I wanted to do was show just a couple minute video from one of our crucibles where I talked about this whole idea of selection. So let's watch that, and then kind of go from there. So let's take a look at this. A little bit nervous, a little bit apprehensive, wondering how this is going to go. You guys will all be fast friends before you know it. Once we get to the climbing spot, we'll do a more extensive briefing on ground rules and safety and all that kind of stuff.
You don't need climbing shoes. Like, it looks like a lot of you have shoes you could rock climb in, but we have them. Probably don't have enough for everyone to have their own climbing shoes, so if you want to use them on a climb, just leave them there. I don't think anyone's going to be sweating profusely today. Move along the brake strand, but it can't leave the brake strand. So it's going to move up and down, but it's not going to leave. Our left hand is our moving hand. So we're going to pull, then we're going to brake, then move our left hand underneath our right hand. So under, then slide.
Selection is one of the most important things when it comes to building and creating a high-performing team. Part of the criteria that we use to select people to come on a crucible and to participate in this, well, part of it is, we've got half executives, half military veterans transitioning to the business world, and we pair them up as accountability partners. So that's a big part of it, the selection. But the three criteria we use is, one, that they have to be selfless, that it's not all about me. The second thing is they have to be adventurous. And by that, we don't mean that they want to take big risks on cliffs and things. What we mean is they're willing to be a little bit vulnerable. There's some genuine humility in their character. And three, we're looking for people that possess heroic aspirations beyond power and money to make a difference in the lives of others that make the world a better place. And you think about that, that's really heroic, because what we're trying to do is get a whole bunch of A players and ambitious people together that want to change things and to collaborate and to share ideas. So the recipe is we've got to have the right ingredients to start with. So again, I think a big part of what we do in creating the environment where the crucible happens is so critical to selecting. And the other thing is, as we tell people, this is why you've been selected, I think what it does is it frames the expectation for behavior. Though none of us are completely selfless. None of us are completely vulnerable. None of us are completely noble in our pursuits. But if we know that we've been selected for that, there's going to be a proclivity to try to achieve that and try to model those behaviors to others and to rise up and be a little bit more virtuous, if you will. So that was our video filmed about a year ago. I know you recognize some of those folks, Al. And again, for the Crucible, we look at selflessness, adventurous, risk-taking, and people that possess heroic aspirations beyond power and money. I'm wondering, when you're at Encore, what are the right ingredients that you're looking for? Non-negotiable things.
Fit. It has to be a good fit for them. It has to be a good fit for us, and it can't be a transaction. It has to be about people, right? We're not going to look at people. We don't hire the best people at Encore. We hire the right people at Encore, right? And that was the same thing we did in the military. You find the right people who are going to thrive, right? And it's not just about filling the needs. It's about people. Hey, are these people going to come and add value to the organization? And are they going to thrive? Are they going to be in a position to take care of their families and to move along in life in the ways that they want to and do something heroic, right? Make an impact in the things that they're going to do. It's not transactional. I think just get over that. It's human beings. Like we tell our recruiters all the time, find the right people, and don't put somebody in a position that if they're going through the process and they've already turned in notice to their other employer, it's like we don't want to put those people in a bad position where they've turned in notice and now they're going to be shown the door and then they get through some kind of a process, and it's like, hey, they're not going to be a good fit here. Well, we just, we kind of screw those people over, and it's like, we don't want to be those people, right? So we want to make sure that we find good people who will add value, be a good fit. And they can come here and thrive, right? And really figure out, like, what do they want to do? Where do they want to go in the world, right? We have a big strategic vision. Everybody has a big strategic vision. Where are you going, right? Do you fit into that? And if you do, and you're the right person and you be the right fit, then we'll get you on board and get you going.
Yeah. The thing I think that are non-negotiable in any organization, tell me if you agree, disagree, or if you've got different criteria. One is, I think, drive, whether it be, I want to win, or I have ambition, or I want to work hard, I want to serve other people, I can find purpose and meaning in what I do. And the other one is curiosity. I wonder how. I wonder, hey, what's it take to go above and beyond? And that, again, curiosity, in my assumption is most people that are curious are trying to continuously improve. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think yes, and I think this goes back to your other question too. It's like, what's the right ingredients? And it's just, I think it's that. Are you ambitious? Do you want to better yourself? Do you want to make an impact in the world? Are you selfless? Are you truly selfless? Right? And like you mentioned in the video, nobody's, purely selfless. We're all selfless or selfish to some degree. Where's your head? What do you want to do? Right? Yeah. Do you see the world through a straw, or do you see the world through, a wide open lens? And that is the people who are curious, right?
Yep.
There's people. Hey, some people are caught up in, I just need to make and support my family. I need to make money. I need to do something, and that's okay too. If you have the fortitude to get up early every day and work hard, that's good too, right? And then we can help you. I think virtuous organizations, say, hey, let's help you figure out, like, let's take you to another level. Let's help you be a better person, not just a better worker or a harder worker.
Yeah. Well, in your organization really looks at virtues. Character traits that are really at the center of your core values. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, the idea of virtuous capitalism was introduced to me by our CEO, obviously a good friend of yours as well. And that helped me understand that, hey, this is truly about people, right? This is about integrity. This is about honesty. This is about the good people principles. Hey, are you a good person? Because if you're a good person and you want to be treated fairly and you want to treat others fairly, this is a good organization for you, right? You bring your virtue. If you're a virtuous person, you can come to an organization that values virtue, and it'll be good.
Yeah. One of the things that I see with a lot of organizations, they have core values, but there's a lot of ambiguity about that with regard to what are the behaviors that are expected regarding those. And, when I looked at the 3 I have for selecting people to attend an expedition, a crucible, I'll give you an example. For selection, I've narrowed that down and I said, well, these are things I can see with my eyes. It's not what somebody knows or thinks. It's the way they behave. I can see initiative in the form of selflessness. Hey, if it needs to be done, do it. I can see collaboration. I can see teamwork. I can see if someone's adaptable. I can see if someone's resilient. They bounce back from mistakes, unforeseen circumstances, unpredictability. I can see whether they're driven and they have goals and they're ambitious. I can see if they're prepared, or, as we would say in the military, if they're squared away. Got to take care of yourself if you're going to take care of others. And I can see if someone's responsive. Do they get back in a timely manner? Which also says a little bit about, their dedication, their loyalty, their work ethic, how responsive they are. So, somebody else might come up with very different criteria by which, they would define selflessness. Those are the ones that I've come up with. Do you think that your organization has done a good job of really defining the behaviors for those core values, and any advice you would have for people out there as far as not only hiring and selecting, but part of that selection process is setting expectations?
Yeah, it's. I think that is the thing. You're looking for alignment with people. You talk about good fit. We think about good fit as value alignment as well. The things that you talk about you can see, but how about the things that you can't see? What's in what's in those, what's in that person's head, what's in their heart. And I think that selflessness, that sense of humility is, hey, if you have the sense of I'm a good person, I want to contribute something greater than myself. To me, that is humility in the sense of selflessness. Not, hey, look how much I can bench press. Look how fast I can run. Right? Look how many proposals I can get done. Right? Great. Who are you as a person?
Yeah.
Right? Who are you as a person? Because our customers are people.
Yeah.
Everything is a human interaction. We're in the people business. We just happen to do electrical construction as part of that.
Yeah.
But everybody's in the people business.
Yeah. Al, I remember, when before you left active duty, I remember you or one of your colleagues saying something to the effect that, hey, if somebody gets a medal, the team probably failed. Something went to hell in a handbasket. If somebody really has to step up, if the team performs, there's no need for heroes. I mean, do you agree with that? And do you think that is the same in the business world as in the military? That, hey, when the team performs, when we're selfless, there aren't heroes.
Yeah.
We don't need heroes. We need really good team members.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't always want a hero, right? You don't want that person that's gonna wants to lead the charge, and that it's like, hey, do your part, right? Get in where you fit in, do your part. Really quick war story, Jan. We, new guy in the military. We had a new guy on our team, and we were doing combat operations, and it got sporty quick. It got exciting, and our new guy got caught up in the shooting that was going on in part of this objective that we were surrounding. And he turned around from his duties to pull rear security, and he got into the shooting, and very aware of it as it was going on. But that we were exposed on our flank, and behind. And when we got back to our base, and we were refitting and getting cleaned up and getting some chow and doing those things, we pulled him aside and tore into him, and he was shocked. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you guys yelling at me? Right. And he was just like, I performed well. Like when it got crazy, I got right in there and started trying to solve the immediate problem. And it's like, you weren't doing your job. Your job was to watch behind us, right? Your job was to watch for the threats that we can't see. And I think that's the same in business. It's like, do your job, right? You don't have to lead every charge. You don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be the president. Like, everybody has a role. Do your role the best that you can.
Yeah. In the business world, it seems that person that is the leader oftentimes, that they might not be pulling their security, but they're supposed to figure out where the direction of the organization, and they get in the weeds.
Yeah.
And then they're not doing what only they can do.
Yeah.
Because they want to be busy. They want to be in the action. They want to oftentimes unknowingly micromanage.
Right. It's seductive to want to get in there, jump in there, and then just do.
Yep.
Right. When you could be working on the things that you should be working on.
So, again, from a leadership perspective, big picture, we're talking about selecting the right people versus the best people, where there's a fit. Kind of outline how is the decision process work where you are as far as selecting people? Is it a committee? Is it the hiring manager? Is it dependent on the role? How's that work? Who gets to decide?
Does all of that, everything you just said, right? Depends on the role. It definitely depends on the hiring needs of the organization. The hiring manager, works closely with our recruiting team, our talent acquisition team, and it's to find the right person, right? Ultimately, to find the right person. Where we can get awry is you got a lot of needs. Everybody has needs, and the seduction of just filling roles doesn't have good consequences, right? It's not a good way to go. Performance is low. You create a bunch of other noise, but for us, it starts with the hiring manager's needs.
Yeah.
Our people, all of our business stakeholders out there everywhere say, hey, here's my needs. This is what I want. And then it's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. And then recruiters get busy. Yep. They screen a lot of people. Just for like statistics, last year, 2023, our company scanned or processed over 6,000 applications, that we have to sift through, right?
Wow.
For the roles that people are applying for. And you sift through all that, and we hired less than 300.
Wow.
So out of 6,000 applications, that's a lot of work going back and forth, looking for the right people. Hey, and it's not just judging them. It's, hey, will that person come here and do well in this role? Here's the role. Here's where we think they're in. And are they the right people? Are they going to come in here and add value to the team, be able to fit in, good values, and fit in the culture?
Yep. Yeah. I did the math. That's 5%.
Yeah, it's small.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've got the authority, who makes that decision. Again, it depends on different roles. You've got different processes. Again, is it democratic? Hey, the majority rules, or is it consensus? Is it collaborative? Is it, hey, I want your input, but I'm the hiring manager and I decide? I mean, is that vary as well, or is there a hard and fast rule?
No, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule, and I think that you do get caught up in the business, and you get caught up in the transactional things. You would think that you would want a nice, quiet system where it's just like very systematic, right? There's not a lot of variability in it, but the truth is that there's people involved. There's people involved on the hiring side, on the employer side, and then there's people involved on the other side, and then because there's people in it, there's variability.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yes, the hiring manager has the final say. A lot of times we put ourselves in an advisory role where we'll say, hey, you could hire that person and we'll bring them on. We're just advising you that they're probably not the best person, right? They're not the right person.
Yep.
And
so again, I mean, you've got these values and you try to determine, hey, what are the behaviors that fit with those different values? That's what you're going to base your hiring criteria on. And so, I mean, there's a certain amount of, again, fit. And at the same time, you want some diversity of thought. You want to be inclusive, those kind of things. So how do you balance that? How do you balance, hey, here's our values. We want to find people that really fit with these values. But we also don't want to have an organization where we've got groupthink. Everybody is the same, thinks the same, approaches every problem the same. I mean, how do you balance that?
I think that you don't have a choice in an organization like ours, right? Like we're growing so fast that even if you did have groupthink, or you had, sometimes I hear it called the good old boy club. Yeah. Even if you have that in a growing organization, and just the landscape, the landscape we're in today, the societal landscape, you don't have a choice but to address it, right? Make sure that you're doing those things right. And you do want a bigger worldview of things, right? You do want that diversity of thought, that diversity of background. People bring a lot of value in that type of thinking, where it just adds to the organization. And you have to be open to it, right? You can't. And here's the thing, Jan, if you get into this point where you're just like, oh, this sounds like, this woke movement, right? Like sometimes you hear that. It's like, stop, come on. Like you're thinking about this at a really shallow level, and you're thinking at it through your own lens, right? Through your own experiences, through your own bias. And if you can overcome that, and start to think about things, just be an objective observer. Sometimes I like to pull myself out and say, hey, I'm just an objective observer in this. It's like, what is the right thing for the organization? What adds value to the organization? How does this help, like for our company, how does this help us accomplish our mission? Right? How do you move forward in that?
Yeah. And you know, I'm thinking what's popping into my mind visually as you're talking is, you know, you've got individuals and we all have an arc. You know, we're newbies in a career, and we move through and at different points, and you know, we need different things. We offer different things at different points in our career, and every organization also has a life cycle. You know, that it's birth, it's growing, there's maturity, and sometimes for organizations there's decline. You know, look at General Electric. And it's almost like, how do you make sure that, you know, that you've got the people and the organization sort of on the same path? So my question is, you know, you select the right people, the best people, the right people for your organization. How do you ensure that the people you hired 5 years ago are still the right people, the best people? And, you know, how do you deal with that if they're not?
Yeah. You know, a couple of thoughts on that. One, you know, I was thinking about, like, when you're talking about the right people in the hiring process, I think back to my military days, and, you know, even working in special operations, you know, like it was explained to me, everybody comes with risk. And when we're trying to find the right people,
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to find people that have lower risk, right? We don't want the heroes. Heroes come with a lot of risk, right? They do. We want to find people that we can manage their risk, because all people come with risk. And, you know, like what you're talking about, how do you, as you go into the future, how do they remain the right people, right? How do they remain selfless and wanting to contribute in that? And I think it's the thought, right? Jan, we've talked about this so many times. It's selection's an ongoing process,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every day, selection is an ongoing process, right? I should have to prove myself every day.
Yep.
Right? I should have to add value every day. I should have to be selfless every day, right? I should have to do those things. It should never be about me. I should never want just to take and never give back, right? I should always give more than I ever take from the organization. And I think it's that thought of, hey, selection's an ongoing process, right? Like, you should feel a sense of gratitude every day that you get up and that you're employed, right? That you get to go and do something meaningful. In our organization, we think about it like this. We're an electrical contractor. And I tell people all the time, it's like, look, it's not about bending pipe and pulling wire. That's how we get stuff done, right? It's about what we do and why we do it and why we do it together, right? We build hospitals. We build cancer centers. We build schools. We build data centers. We do things that impact our communities. Ultimately, it's going to impact our families. It impacts our nation, right? And that's working with a sense of a higher purpose. And I think that if someone remains selfless, it's because they always have that sense of purpose, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, this isn't about me. It's never going to be about me. And if you wake up and be okay with that every day, I think that you will work with a sense of purpose, and you'll be proud of the things that you do. You'll be proud of the people to your left and right. You'll start to consider them as family, as closeness. And when that happens, Jan, you don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
Right? I think in the military, probably when you're in special operations too, you never want to be the last guy.
No.
Right? There's that drive inside. You're just like, man, I don't want to fail the team. Like, it's not that I don't want to be looked at as the slowest guy. I don't want to let the team down.
Yep.
Right. And I think that helps going in the future. It keeps you always as the right person.
I was on a flight last night coming back home, and that my seatmate was watching Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise doing a big motorcycle jump, skydive. And you're talking about, you know, the heroes come with a lot of risk. And you're like, well, every character that's like a hero, like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, is difficult. You know, they're ornery, they're hard to get along with. They don't work well with others. And then I'm thinking, gosh, if the world's fate is dependent on one person and some stunt they're doing, we're in trouble.
We are.
I mean, if an organization is dependent on one person being the hero, you're in trouble. And we all know that we are all replaceable. We
100%.
are, and that takes a lot of, you've got to set your pride and ego aside at a certain point and decide that, hey, I don't have to be the hero. I don't have to be the only one that knows this stuff. What I've got to do is I've got to be a really great team player. I've got to be somebody that people know that I'm dependable. And part of it is, if you're going to be in an organization, if you're a lone wolf, that's probably not the place for you. I mean, you should be an entrepreneur. You should do something. You should do something else. But you've got to be motivated. And the other thing I was thinking about was, I've seen lots of groups interact on crucibles, and oftentimes there's somebody that's, they're quote unquote, they're dealing with something. They just want to be left alone. And, and the group will often excuse them, but then the group will start going, well, we're all dealing with something, and that person might say, hey, leave me alone. I've got to do something my own way. But they're not thinking selflessly about, hey, how's that affect the rest of the team? If I'm over here, I am actually going to make them uncomfortable if I act like I want to be left alone.
It's such an important part. Like we're talking about this from an individual perspective, right? Like, hey, be selfless, have that healthy paranoia that you're never going to do enough, right? And that you should do more, and that you should contribute more to the teams and team success. And then the reality is, like, your teammates, they're going to show up. You're going to show up. You're going to have days where you're not going to be your best, right? And you're not going to do those things. And I think that's where the collective group has the courage and the compassion to go, I call it the neck hug, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I love you so much. You're frustrating me. Like my son, when he was a teenager, I was just like, I love you so much.
Yeah.
Really not meeting expectations. Let me give you a neck hug and let's get you back on course, right? Like, have that compassion, but you have to be candid in that too, right? We've talked about compassionate candor.
Yeah.
Right. Have the courage and the compassion to meet people where they're at. They're not going to show up their best every single day.
Yeah. Alicia just put a comment in, because I asked, are we hitting on the right themes? And she said, yes, these are things to think about. We recently had a candidate that has some experience, but just missed the mark. She is currently working on a master's, and had me question where she was going. When asked where she saw herself 5 years, her answer was simply, if we had hired her, she would still be in the same position, because we are a startup. We still would be building the plant. The question threw me. These, for me, are basic questions, and and I don't have the rest of, that's all I've got, Alicia. So hopefully we're kind of grasping this. And what I'm hearing, Alicia, and Al, I'd love for you to weigh in, is part of selection is aligning expectations right at the get-go. I mean, they're selling themselves to us, we're selling ourselves, but as we go down a path, it's sort of like, hey, we've got to share the good, the bad, the ugly. We've got to share, hey, here's what success looks like here. And again, if I say, hey, you've got to be responsive, and you tell me I work 8 to 5 and nothing on the weekends, and I never check my email, and I have a 10-foot thick brick wall between work and home, for me, that wouldn't work. For other people, they might say, that's awesome. That's great that you've got really great boundaries. But again, I think, you can hire people that have a goal 5 years from now to be somewhere else. I mean, we're not signing up people for a 20-year Army enlistment,
right?
Either. I'd love for you to weigh in on that, Al.
I think we look at some of our, especially some of our high performers. You get some of our newer professionals, they come in and they're high performers, and we know that they're working on things, and we know that they're ambitious, and we know that they're going to want to run their own thing at some point, and we support it. And, the thought process is, for as long as we can have them on the team and help them grow and help them continue to grow. I don't think you'd ever have this thing of, it's like, hey, loyalty undying loyalty to the organization, and that's all. It's like, it's not about that. It's about people developing, right? It's about human beings becoming better, not just as workers or that. But I don't know that we ever think about it like, we know that a lot of people they're going to outgrow their roles, and if there's no mobility for them, either upward or lateral mobility for them, we know that they'll probably go someplace where they can continue to grow and develop as a professional. And we're okay with that. I mean, we're just like that. Yes, that's actually a good thing, right? And you're going to try to manage that talent and keep that talent for as long as you can, and help them, guide them through the organization if they're adding a ton of value. But I don't think we'd ever be like, hey, we're not going to take that person on because they're, 5 years from now, they're not going to be here. It's like, no.
Yeah. Well,
you've hit for us and them. Let's get them going.
Yeah, you've hit on what Dan Pink says, what really the things that drive people. One is having a little bit of say-so in how they do their job, autonomy. The other one is really finding purpose and meaning in their work, which hopefully they equate that to serving others. Because if you work, you're helping other people in some way, shape, or form. And the last thing is, do you have the ability to grow and develop, develop mastery, whether you stay at the organization, go somewhere else, that you're acquiring new skills, new perspectives, new insights, new knowledge. So, yeah, I think we owe that to folks. This was an interesting chapter that we put into the book. As we looked at, hey, how are we selecting people to come on the Crucible? What we found is over the years, when people are told to come on a Crucible, the company says, hey, we're going to pay for you to come on a Crucible, go. That doesn't work. Doesn't work well. We need people that say, hey, I see the value in this experience. I want to go. So, part of selection is really, boy, we want to see that drive, that passion. And the same thing goes if you're looking at somebody that's coming to Encore Electric. You want somebody that really wants to be there. And what I wrote in the chapter was, when you select the right people for your team versus others who might be considered the best people, you ensure that you maintain the culture that best supports your organization's value and successful implementation of your strategy. And I think, some of that I learned from you, Al. But I really do think that setting the culture you want begins with selection. It begins with the people. And a woman we interviewed recently out of Kansas City on the podcast said something so eloquent. She said, your culture becomes the worst behavior you tolerate. And so I love that idea that selection's an ongoing process. Just because you were a great fit 5 years ago doesn't mean you're the right fit today. Maybe the organization's changed and you haven't adapted. Maybe you've changed. Maybe you've gotten less patient. Maybe, your work ethic isn't what it could be. Maybe you're less tolerant. Maybe you're rude, to other people. Go ahead.
So like you said, you hit on a key thing. You talked about culture, and your culture becomes the worst behavior you'll tolerate. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot about like culture, like even at Encore, it's like, well, what is the culture and what is the subculture, in different areas of the organization? Because we're getting quite large and geographically spread out. And like for myself, just so I can make sense of it, sometimes I have to like really dumb stuff down. And I start thinking about culture, and then I come to these, for me, it's kind of like an awakening. It's like, oh, culture is about behavior. It's all about behavior, And so for me, I write the simple equation of like culture equals behavior. And it's that is your culture.
Yeah.
Right. Your behaviors, the behaviors that people exhibit in any part of the organization that is the culture, right? How they behave, good or bad. That is the culture.
It's words and deeds, right?
Yeah.
And again, this all goes back to self-awareness. Is not only, to be a good follower, to be a good leader, you really have to know, hey, here's how I am. but more importantly, here's how I am and how it affects other people. Whether, I mean, I was in a meeting the other day, somebody said something, and I know where they were, I know where they were coming from, but it came off the wrong way. And they were sort of unapologetic about it. Like, hey, I'm a good person. This is my opinion. I think this way. It's right. And they didn't see that this other person was just cringing. Like, you have offended me deeply. and it's like, how are you not seeing this? You might be right, but the way you're approaching, I mean, you're damaging a relationship with a critical teammate. And again, not really understanding that, not having the ability to regulate an emotional response that's best for the team. It's like, well, I'm right. And this darn pride and ego gets in the way so often.
But that doesn't that make that just becomes about you then?
Yeah.
Right? And that starts to fall out of the culture, right? If your culture is about behavior, about selfless behavior, about the team, about the tribe, about the greater good, and then you're consumed with being right, it's like, okay, now you're really getting off base, right? Like, but that's where the teammates got to pull them back, right? And just point that out and be compassionate,
Yep.
right? Be kind, be compassionate, but be candid and tell them, hey, you're off mark. Jan, I think about things that you talk about all the time, right? And it's probably in your new book, but direction, pace, and tone.
Yep.
Right.
It
And the tone of what it matters, right? Setting that clear direction, those expectations, the standard, and then how fast do you want to go?
Yeah, that's it. We got one more comment, and then we're going to wrap here in a minute. Alicia came back, and the bottom line was, hey, what if somebody in the interview process says they don't like to delegate? My thoughts, Alicia, is it depends on the role. I mean, if they're coming into a leadership role and they don't like to delegate, that's not a good fit. Because I see too many people that are doing their old job. And I tell them, you are not paid to do your old job. You're paid to do what only you can do. And to do that, you need to develop people so that you can delegate and do what only you can do. And if you're going to control everything, what you're going to find out is a burned out, stressed out mess of a person, and unfulfilled people beneath them because they haven't been given responsibilities and growth and development. So, again, having really clear criteria for the selection for a given role, for example, leadership, is critical. And I would rather leave positions empty than fill them with the wrong people.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
100% agree. Right. If you can't delegate, and delegation for up and coming leaders in their own developmental processes is something you have to work with people to do, because people aren't doing that. But if you're just unwilling to delegate, delegation comes with a lot of trust. You have to trust, enable, and empower others to get whatever it is that you're giving them to get done. And sometimes that's a scary proposition, right? But that's part of a leader's growth. Even an organization's growth and maturity is can I find that trust, right? Yeah. If I'm hiring the right people, if I'm hiring the right people, if I'm finding the right people and I'm bringing the right people into the organization, and I'm keeping the right people in the organization, you can delegate. You can trust them to get things done. You can enable and empower them.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really a great conversation. And I mean, it's one of the most important things. There's a fellow by the name of Bobby Herrera who wrote The Gift of Struggle, which I highly recommend. And he always said, hey, it all boils down to three things: selecting, versus hiring, welcoming versus onboarding, and ongoing development. And, all three of those things are super important. All three of those things are not urgent. The crisis of the day, the fire drill of the day are the urgent things, but selecting and welcoming and developing people will be the most important thing, but it will never be urgent. And what you have to do is make time on the calendar for that. And And that's where I see a lot of things go wrong, is leaders not being really disciplined about where they spend their time. And oftentimes they just associate being busy, being in meetings, answering email with being effective. And it really starts at the top of an organization, that there's a real emphasis on selecting, the fit. I go back to my days when I first left the Army and got hired in a big pharmaceutical company. That selection process was rigorous. I mean, there was a lot of interviews, but every interview by every manager throughout the country for that company was exactly the same. I mean, everyone had the same interview training preparation, and they had different personalities. They asked different questions, but the process by which they interviewed to select the right people, the best people, the right fit was the same. There was consistency, and then there was consistency in the results of performance of the organization. So, Al, you get the last word, my friend.
My last word is thank you, Jan, and congratulations to you and Jackie for getting this point. Thanks for being a good leader across many industries. Thanks for advocating for veterans. Thanks for just being a good person and really embodying the golden rule and all the things that you do. I appreciate you guys. I'll make a plug on your behalf. If anybody that's watching this, you could pre-order this book. Right, it's coming out in the fall. Jan is a wealth of wisdom, as is Jackie. You'll learn a lot from just selflessly absorbing the principles that you'll learn in this book. So thanks, Jan. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Al. That's nice to be it. We did not prearrange you to make a plug for the book, but I appreciate it. And again, I've said before on LinkedIn, I hate the marketing part. I really enjoyed putting the book together, working with Jackie Jordan. I don't want to yell out there, hey, look at me, buy my book. My personal goal isn't to be on the New York Times bestseller. I hope the book does well by word of mouth. I do. I am also not naive enough to know that, hardly anything sells itself unless Oprah's involved. And I'm pretty sure Oprah's not going to,
it's not going to give you an endorsement.
I don't think so. But hey, congrats on all your success. And again, I know you're constantly helping a lot of veterans with their transition, and a big plug out there for people listening that are hiring managers and looking for great people. Make sure in your pool of candidates that you're looking at veterans. And again, what I would say is, don't treat them differently than anybody else.
Yeah.
Don't give them special treatment, but give them a fair shake. And if they don't cut it, I would ask you, to the best of your legal ability, let them know if they didn't do well in the interview, let them know why. And so that you can help them, because it's a big transition. They're going from an environment where money is just not an issue, to the business world where we all know we have to produce more value than we cost. And that's not a tenet of a military service.
Yeah.
Duty is, and that's, something that can oftentimes be hard to find, is somebody that's duty bound. But again, Al, thank you for being on LinkedIn Live office hours. And for those of you that are listening later on to the recording, really appreciate you. And Alicia, if you're still on, thank you for your great questions. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and our next one will be in a couple of weeks, and that'll be on Chapter 2, Preparation. So more to come on that one. And that one will be Waldo Waldman, who's a Hall of Fame speaker, a coach, and a former F-16 pilot. So that'll be a fun one. All right, everybody. Thank you. And again, Al, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.